You know that feeling, that knot in your stomach.
Hmm.
It kind of tightens when you realize someone you really care about, someone you've, well, put a lot into,
Yeah.
their world might not quite revolve around you the way yours feels like it does around them.
Right. That specific unsettling feeling. That's exactly what we're getting into today.
Okay.
We're going to unpack that particular kind of jealousy,
Uh,
the one that pops up when you've made a real significant emotional investment.
and that could be anything, right? Romantic, friendship.
Oh, absolutely. Romantic, close friends, even those, undefined connections. We'll look at how that investment changes things, what jealousy means in that context.
Okay, so emotional investment. Let's break that down. It's got to be more than just like really liking someone. Yeah.
Definitely. Think of it as the sum total almost of your time, your energy, your attention,
Okay.
your genuine care that you're directing towards one person. You're not just passively interested.
Yeah.
You're actively, like, in it emotionally. And our sources really point out this isn't just for romance.
All right, you said that. Friends too.
Friends, colleagues, maybe someone you're just starting to know but feel a strong pull towards.
Yeah.
It really taps into something fundamental, that human need for connection and reciprocity.
And it feels almost automatic, doesn't it? The more you put in,
Hmm.
the more you kind of hope for something back, some sign that, what you feel matters to them too, like this little mental tally.
Exactly. Like an unspoken ledger. That's a good way to put it. And when that balance feels off,
Yeah.
that's fertile ground for those first, maybe subtle whispers of jealousy.
Right, that expectation of reciprocity, often unspoken, like you said.
Totally unspoken, but it's a natural result of investing emotionally. And when we feel a threat to that balance, or we just don't see the return we kind of hoped for,
Mm.
the internal alarm system starts flashing. Those subtle signs start appearing.
And these signs, they're not always like big dramatic fights or anything.
No, not at all.
The sources we looked at were great on this, highlighting the quieter stuff. Like that little pang of discomfort when they mention a new friend, maybe?
Yeah, and what's interesting there is how that little bit of unease, it can signal a sort of subconscious worry, maybe, a worry about their focus shifting.
Hmm.
It can also show up as, wanting to check their social media more often.
Ah, the classic scroll.
Right. And it's not always about mistrust, not initially anyway.
Yeah.
It's more like seeking reassurance, checking where their energy seems to be going. Sort of a relational FOMO, maybe?
Relational FOMO, I like that. Okay. And then inevitably, the comparison game starts.
Oh, yeah.
Suddenly you're measuring yourself against everyone else in their life.
And that often comes from feeling a bit vulnerable because of your investment,
Yeah.
right? You put emotional stock in this connection,
Yeah.
and now you're sort of subconsciously scanning for, like, competition.
Mm-hmm.
The sources also mention resentment building up. When you feel the effort isn't equal, you're giving a lot, or you feel like you are, and the lack of perceived reciprocity,
Yeah.
it can bubble up as this low-level jealousy.
And what about those thoughts? Those like what if loops in your head?
Mm,
Picturing them clicking with someone else, maybe someone better in some way, that can be exhausting.
totally. Those intrusive thoughts, they're often powered by an insecurity that's tied directly to your investment.
Okay.
You value this connection so much that the idea of losing it triggers this really basic fear. It's useful to just notice these feelings in yourself, not beat yourself up, but see them as signs, maybe linked to what you've put in.
Okay, so we're putting our hearts out there, emotionally speaking. And when we sense maybe that's not fully matched or it might go elsewhere, these more subtle jealous feelings come up.
Right.
Now, the sources talk about this idea of an imagined world. What's that about? And how does it make the jealousy more intense?
Yeah, this is such a key idea. When we invest deeply, we often, without even realizing it sometimes, build up this whole mental story.
Yeah. A narrative?
Exactly. A narrative around the relationship.
Yeah.
The role the other person plays, where we think it's all heading. And the more invested we are,
Mm-hmm.
the more detailed and frankly central this internal imagined world becomes. It's like you're writing a play in your head and you've cast them in this huge role.
So we're the director and screenwriter of this internal movie about the connection.
Pretty much. And then emotional dissonance happens. That's the term the sources use when the other person's actual actions
Yeah.
don't match the role you wrote for them in your script.
Yeah.
That gap, that disconnect between your internal hopes and their external reality, that's often where the real hurt, the more intense jealousy starts to grow.
And this is the kicker, isn't it? The sources really stress that the other person might have no idea about this script.
None at all.
They didn't sign up for the part we cast them in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which raises a really important question. How often is our jealousy actually coming from expectations we never even voiced? Maybe weren't even fully aware of ourselves. Now, feeling jealous when this happens, it's understandable. It shows you care deeply. But recognizing that the pain might be coming from that gap, the one between your internal script and their reality, that's a huge step towards actually managing the feeling.
It's like we invented secret rules for the relationship, and then we get upset when they break them, even though they never got the rule book.
That's a perfect analogy.
Okay, so we have those initial feelings, unease, social media checks, comparisons. That's the early stuff. But when does it tip over into something really harmful?
Yeah, the sources draw a really clear line between those, let's say, normal initial feelings and when jealousy becomes toxic. And that shifts. It often happens when those underlying feelings get ignored, just left to simmer and grow.
Okay.
And then some really unhealthy patterns can pop up.
Like trying to control what they do, who they see. That's a big one, right?
Huge red flag.
Yeah.
Yeah, trying to control someone else's behavior is a definite sign jealousy has gone toxic. The sources also talk about using emotional manipulation.
Like guilt trips.
Exactly, guilt trips. Trying to make them feel bad for having other friends, other interests. Sometimes that ties back to feeling like things aren't fair, like you're putting in way more.
And what about passive aggression, those little digs?
Yep. Those snide comments fueled by insecurity.
Yeah.
That's another way unmanaged jealousy comes out.
Yeah.
It's expressing discomfort, trying to get a reaction, but without actually saying what's wrong. And then maybe the scariest part is the potential for sabotage.
Sabotage. How?
Well, either consciously trying to damage their other relationships or even unconsciously messing up the connection you have with them because your own feelings are just too intense and out of control.
Wow. So it sounds like the turning point is when it stops being about your feelings of vulnerability and starts being about actively trying to, like, restrict or even hurt the other person or the relationship.
Precisely. That's when that emotional investment curdles into that unhealthy emotional imbalance the sources mention. And that hurts everyone, but especially, the person feeling it.
Okay, so that's the danger zone. What about getting out of it? If someone recognizes these feelings bubbling up, what practical things can they actually do?
Right, the actionable stuff. The sources give some really solid strategies.
Let's hear them. The first one mentioned was pause and name the feeling. Sounds simple, but powerful.
It really can be. Just stopping, identifying, okay, this is jealousy I'm feeling,
Uh-huh.
and then trying to connect it to what's underneath, feeling scared of being replaced maybe, or ignored, or just not valued. That act of naming it creates a bit of space. It helps with self-awareness, maybe a little emotional regulation.
Okay, naming it. Then number 2 was check your expectations. This goes right back to that imagined world thing, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's about being really honest with yourself. Were these expectations actually communicated? Did we agree on this, me and the other person?
Or did I just assume?
Or did you just assume based on how much you invested in the story you wrote in your head?
Yeah, that's a tough but crucial check. Makes sense. Then take back your emotional energy. I like how that sounds, like reclaiming something.
Yeah, it's about redirection. If you find yourself just obsessing over this person, tracking their every move online, replaying scenarios, consciously deciding to pull some of that focus back, put that energy into your own hobbies, your goals, your other friends, your support system, it can naturally dial down the intensity of the jealousy.
Okay, redirect the energy. What about talking about it? The sources say, communicate if appropriate. How do you do that without sounding, well, accusatory or desperate?
Yeah, that's tricky. The key is gentle honesty. Focus on your feelings using I statements.
Like, I feel, not you make me feel.
Exactly. I've been feeling a bit insecure lately when X happens, rather than you're making me jealous by doing Y.
But crucially, this really only works well if there's already some trust and openness there. It's not always the right move for every situation.
Got it. And the last strategy, create boundaries. That sounds potentially hard, especially if you're really invested. It can feel hard, absolutely. But it's fundamentally about self-care. If you find consistently that this person just can't meet your needs, or the dynamic keeps triggering this intense jealousy no matter what you try, then creating some distance might be necessary. That could be physical distance or maybe just emotional distance, pulling back a bit. It's not about punishing them.
It's about protecting yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Self-preservation,
Got it.
recognizing your own limits and your own worth.
So instead of seeing jealousy as just this, like, awful character flaw,
Right.
the sources seem to frame it more like a signal, like an internal dashboard light coming on.
That's a great way to put it. Jealousy, especially the kind tied to deep emotional investment, can absolutely be a valuable signal. It definitely highlights fears of loss. Yeah.
Hmm.
But as the sources really smartly point out, it can also shine a light on where we might have been neglecting ourselves, putting too much focus outward, maybe losing sight of our own needs in the quest for someone else's attention or validation.
Hmm.
So noticing the jealousy becomes an opportunity, a chance to maybe rebalance things, prioritize taking care of yourself again.
So understanding jealousy isn't about being bad or possessive necessarily. It's more like a signpost telling you something might be off balance,
Could be.
either in your expectations maybe, or just in where you're putting all your emotional energy. And the bottom line seems to be that investing in someone else shouldn't cost you your own peace of mind.
Absolutely. Your own inner peace, your sense of self-worth, that's got to remain central.
That is a powerful takeaway.
It really is. So maybe something for listeners to think about as they reflect on their own lives.
Yeah.
How can understanding these dynamics, this interplay between investing emotionally and the jealousy that can sometimes follow, how can that help you build healthier connections? What does it feel more balanced? And maybe build a stronger sense of your own self along the way.
Yeah.
It's definitely an ongoing process, right? Self-awareness, learning in relationships, it doesn't stop.